everyone, Jason Gilbo here at JGilbo11. Look at some GPP bats for tonight's slate. I got a big 15-game slate. We have cores on our hands. We also have some really good pitching options. So overall, probably one of my favorite slates of the year. I can't think of one that can top one right now off the top of my head. So we're going to dive right into it, looking at catcher. If you always want to check out what we're thinking pitching-wise, we do have our pitching nail down pod that's out. You can also head on over to fantasycafe.com. This is strictly just hitters. Looking at catcher, Wilson Contreras is a logical option against a lefty. We saw the Cubs ownership pretty low last night with the wins. Obviously, we still saw a low-scoring game. Chris Bryant was the only one to really do any damage. I think Almora was the other one. Looks like another night where winds are blowing. It doesn't look as bad, but still, winds blowing in is an issue always in Wrigley. But looking at Wilson Contreras, obviously hits lefties well in his career, over 350 WOBA. Looking at Jeff Locke, this is a guy you can pick on from time to time. Tonight, I definitely don't mind doing that, and I think the Cubs are going to still come in lower owned just because, one, they haven't really been terrific this year outside of a couple of big games from certain guys. They just haven't put it together offensively, all at once. So Wilson Contreras reasonably priced on both sites. He's been hitting pretty solid over the last 2 weeks or so. I definitely don't mind going to him at a reasonable price. Alex Avila, maybe out of the lineup, maybe in. We're seeing with James McCann. He's coming back in, so keep an eye on there. But if he is in the lineup, I don't mind him against Jesse Chavez, who, yes, he's reverse splits, but he's horrible away from home, and that's something to really note. As the Tigers move in and take on Angels tonight. So I like a lot of Tigers bats. I like a Tigers stack, as I mentioned in the stacking pod, but Alex Avila would be a big play upside guy. If he's in the lineup, we'll have to kind of keep an eye on that. Mike Zunino, the other one, hitting over 300 in the last 10 games. This guy has monster power. He's only hit 2 homers this year, one coming the other day. Drove in 7 runs, went 3 for 4. He's got 5. He's got a couple multi-hit games in 5 of the last 7, so he's been absolutely stellar. I like him here against Hector Santiago, who I will definitely be targeting even in Safeco. Santiago is definitely due for some regression. Hard contact, 34.3% to right-handers, has allowed 8 home runs, 30.5% ground ball rate. Doesn't miss a ton of bats. This kind of speaks well for Zunino here, who's probably going to be hitting about 6th, so in a really good spot. I also like, depending on what Brewers catcher, I'm hoping it's Jet Bandy. He's got the most upside. I love him against Matt Cain. Matt Cain's another one who struggles on the road. Overall, lying over 350 WOBA, but on the season line 328. Matt Cain, obviously, away from AT&T Park is someone to target with some Brewers bats. Looking at first base, Eric Thames, tremendous price on FanDuel. 4,900 on DK. It's priced up a little bit, but I definitely can see why against Cain. Cain's a guy who's going to struggle with some lefties, 338 WOBA, but that gets up over 400 on the road. XFIP, FIP over 4.5. Cain's going to be a guy that I do target heavily tonight. Lucas Duda, this guy's been swinging a really hot bat, 5 home runs over his last few games. Moving into Texas here now, good ballpark to hit in. Mets numbers take a jump as far as ISO goes on the road. And then you're also kind of just looking here at Dylan G, who's around a 340 WOBA in his career to lefties, old teammate of some of these Mets guys. Lucas Duda, once again, I think him and Thames, the prices are up both 4,900 on DK. They're cheaper on FanDuel, so you do have a little bit more points per dollar return there. Do keep that in mind. Then when you move down, to a couple of guys I don't mind. Will Myers, really good GPP spot. You're probably going to get him at less than 5% ownership tonight. Going up against Robbie Ray. Robbie Ray's a guy, obviously the hard contact's always been an issue, 41% to righties. Has allowed 7 home runs. Most of those have come in Chase Field. His hard contact, his WOBA, his numbers all take a huge rise when in Chase. So I like Robbie Ray in tournaments tonight, but I also like Will Myers as kind of a lone bat to take against him. Danny Valencia is another one. This guy's been red hot, hitting over 400 in the last 2 weeks. Looking at him against lefties, that's kind of been the same thing with him. We've always used him that way in the past. a good, cheap kind of value first baseman I don't mind targeting on tonight's slate with some upside. So second base, I'm not really inclined to pay up all too much. I love Jason Kipnis on DK because the price tag's, obviously not as high. And that's the theme with a lot of these Rockies and Indians bats. They're not too badly priced on DraftKings, but FanDuel, they do carry a little bit more. I like Neil Walker here. Same reason, going up against Dylan G, who struggled. His numbers take a rise, hitting over 300 on the road compared to 220 at home, averaging about 4 more fantasy points per game. So looking at Walker against Dylan G in that ballpark, there's a lot of upside for the price. I definitely don't like going his way. Javier Baez is a cheap guy, hits lefties pretty well. This is a guy with tremendous power. If anyone's going to hit one out, I think Baez is obviously a shot to do that with that wind blowing in. Likely going to see a lot of people kind of gravitate towards Happ, which I don't hate. Obviously, Happ coming off the big game the other day. But looking at Baez, I think he's an option I will be worth considering at least just to get some low ownership and some exposure to the Cubs, even with the wind blowing in. Not a lot of people are going to go that route. And there's still an option here against Locke, who's just not that good of a lefty. So as far as a cheap guy, Eric Sogard is a guy to consider. Once again, another 2-hit game last night, hitting over 300. And once again, another bat to take against Matt Cain. Cheap value, probably going to get overlooked once again on the slate. So definitely a guy I will be considering using. Third base, this is a fun one. You obviously have Nolan Arenado up there back at home. But looking at a couple other guys, Jake Lamb back at home, kind of expensive options. I kind of don't mind paying down, and Chris Bryant 4,600 is intriguing, but I like Manny Machado here 4,600. This is a guy facing Ivan Nova, not going to miss a ton of bats. You look at Manny Machado, he's been over 10 DK points in each of his last 4 starts, a couple of homers, starting to come around here now. I'm going to get him all the price tags down a little bit before he gets up into that elite tier again. Like I said, Nova's not a bad pitcher, but he just kind of allows a lot of contact. 30% hard contact rate, it's not bad, doesn't miss a lot of bats. But in this ballpark, I like Machado here to get a hold of one, so I'll take that price all day. As far as other guys go, Wilmer Flores might be DHing. He's not a bad guy to consider. I think if you're looking at kind of a couple of guys, Jose Reyes, if he's hitting second lap, I don't hate the Mets stack. He'd be a part of that for me. Jed Jerko, Cardinals disappointed last night, but I don't mind heading back to the well there against Tim Edelman. Low ground ball pitcher. Allowing a 36% hard contact rate to righties. Jed Jerko hitting fourth in that line has certainly been a fair amount of power, and you have that upside with him. So he's definitely a guy I'll consider on tonight's slate just because of the price tag. It's a little bit lower. He was pretty chalky last night, but I expect him to go a little bit lower owned on tonight's slate. So we're over to shortstop. This is why, you have obviously Carlos Correa has been red hot. But you have a couple guys that are a little bit cheaper, like Trevor Story, Francisco Lindor is obviously in play for some higher upside. But I think if you're looking elsewhere, Tim Beckham's intriguing options against Jose Quintana, given the fact that I don't think a lot of people will take him. High hard contact rate against lefties. Eric Sogard, shortstop eligible on both sides. He'll be a guy to consider for me. Yeah, outside of that, shortstop might be a place I look to pay up just a little bit. Just because I like the upside of some of those bats. I know we have a lot of high-priced pitchers on the hill, but Trevor Story hitting for some power of late. I don't mind him against Clevenger. Brandon Crawford might be a guy to consider more on FanDuel. I don't like the 4,200 price tag on DraftKings, but in that ballpark, Chase Anderson, I'm not expecting to see what he did last time out. Giants offense in a decent spot here, but not my favorite plays on the night. But Brandon Crawford at a weaker position I don't hate. Then you kind of get to some other guys, in the lower price tags. Addison Russell in play for me. Jason Machado going to be likely that Ian Kinsler's back tonight, but I don't hate the move if he does play. He would be an intriguing option. So you have some cheap guys, but also guys to keep a kind of a look on the lineups for. Moving to outfield, definitely have your Coors guys, Charlie Blackmon, definitely in play, Michael Brantley. Carlos Gonzalez is extremely cheap. I don't hate the move on DraftKings. He's been struggling, but a decent spot where, hey, if you want some cheap exposure, you can go that route. He's only, where He's only 3,800 on DraftKings for Coors outfield. He's hitting under 200 over the last 2 weeks, but a guy to worth kind of mentioning. Nelson Cruz against Hector Santiago. This is a guy to always kind of consider against a lefty at the least. Santiago's just a guy I will continue to pick on. A lot of upside. Cruz just has a ton of power against lefties. Even in that ballpark, there's a lot of potential. We see his home numbers. He's actually been better at home this year as far as average wise, but has hit 7 home runs there as well as 7 home runs on the road. Look at Heredia, a cheap guy who's probably going to be leading off in that lineup. I don't hate the move either with those options. So you're going to have some Seattle exposure tonight. I don't mind it. Andrew McCutchen is another one, hitting nearly 400 over the last 2 weeks, showing the power finally. He's at 9 on the season. Going up against Kevin Gausman, who's hasn't really figured things out. He's lined with 414 WOBA to righties, 1.57 home runs per 9. McCutchen's certainly in a spot where I like to consider him in a good ballpark, warmer weather, not badly priced. I think on the slate still, even with his hot stretch, he's going to go a little bit overlooked. So there's definitely a lot of potential for him to do some damage. And I don't even mind a Gregory Polanco either, who's been kind of in and out of the lineup over the last 2 weeks. But Gausman, 342 over to lefties, 36% hard contact rate. So those Pirates outfielders are certainly in play in a contrarian sense tonight. Moving down, Hernan Perez is a guy I like here. Probably going to be hitting around 3rd or 4th in that lineup, which is a good spot for him on tonight's slate. Milwaukee high run total against Matt Cain. There's just a ton of potential for those bats against him in that ballpark. I don't even hate the bottom half guys like a Keon Broxton or anything like that. There's a lot of just potential to do some damage. Seth Smith is a guy I'll take a look at here, probably leading off for Baltimore. Like I said, Ivan Noah's not a huge blow-up guy, but this guy, decent amount of hard contact rate to lefties, 34%. Doesn't miss a ton of bats, and that's kind of Baltimore's issue is, getting pitchers that don't miss a lot of bats. It kind of sets them up pretty well. So I am intrigued there. Aaron Altherr is a guy I'll take a look at. Righty, take out Jaime Garcia. Garcia hasn't been awful of late, but this guy's still a pretty average left-hander. Is rolling a decent amount of ground balls, but that ballpark plays in pretty well to both sides of the plate. So he'd be a guy to kind of take a look at there. You do have some of your chalky guys. JD Martinez is obviously going to be a popular bet tonight against Chavez. Aaron Judge, I would not be against considering just getting that Pomeranz is kind of out of control at times. But I definitely think Nelson Cruz is a good kind of pivot away from those Coors bats, even though he will carry some ownership still. There's a lot of potential. And like I said, Brewers bats, Domingo Santana is another one to consider. So if you're looking for kind of that cheaper Detroit outfielder, Justin Upton, been on a nice little stretch here. A couple extra base hits, a couple doubles over the last few games. He's definitely worth a look. Price tag came up on DraftKings a little bit, but FanDuel is still reasonably priced. So let's wrap things up here. You can head over to DaveFantasyCafe.com, check out our great tools and content.